Most people, they're just trying to keep their head above water. Like you go into your job, you're getting a deluge of emails or requests, and you're just trying to knock them down. I think managing your time effectively takes some intentionality. When you're drowning or when you feel like you're not getting enough time or when you're way too busy, that intentionality can feel like a luxury. I'm just trying to keep my head above water. Like the last thing I want to do is step back and like look at my schedule and do an audit of how I'm spending my time. It just feels like that's insane. You're just trying to move through the day. And I think that's reasonable. You know, a lot of people are just trying to like get through their inbox, get through their task, get through their workday and knock it out. But that doesn't do it in this work environment because you have to be intentional or else everybody's gonna take your time. You know, you gotta block off the time and go heads down. You've gotta think about how you wanna manage your week. You've gotta think about what's important in your week so that you don't just spend the whole week knocking out little fires the whole time and then end up on Friday and go, you know, what the hell did I do this week? So I think that intentionality is so critical and most people don't make time for it. My name is Matt Martin. I am the co-founder and CEO of Clockwise. We are a time automation platform that helps individuals, teams, and companies get schedules that they love. There are a lot of things that I'm proud of about what we've accomplished at Clockwise, but I think the biggest achievement is creating an engine, a scheduling engine that can take in information about how you work, your preferences, what's happening in your day, what's happening in your organization, and automatically move meetings to create a better schedule. That's something when we first introduced that idea to the world and we were pitching investors, a lot of people laughed us out of the room because it sounds crazy, and it is a little bit crazy, but being able to do that reliably, effectively, and in a way that empowers our users is probably our crowning achievement. And we've moved 17 million plus meetings so far in Clockwise history. So I'm a time nerd, and I say I like love it. Like I love like productivity software. I love calendar audits. I was working with my front-end engineering team and I was questioning why the number one complaint I get is like they don't have enough time to go heads down. Because you go look at their calendar and it's like, well, relative to my calendar, it looks pretty good. You gotta unpack that problem a little bit more because if you just look at what's going on at the surface level, you're not getting the whole picture. And after pulling that thread for a while, what we came to is the conclusion that time inside of these modern organizations, they become so networked. It's not just the calendar system where literally like somebody can reach out, grab time from me by just looking at my calendar, but also people are sending emails, they're sending Slacks, they're sending Jira tickets, they're sending messages at Confluence. Like we're asking each other of time and attention all throughout the day. And this is a little bit philosophical, but I think it's a really important piece to understand what we do at Clockwise, which is if you have a really valuable resource, and nothing's more valuable than time, both philosophically, but also just brass tacks, payroll is the number one expense inside of most knowledge work organizations. So you have this really valuable resource. It's become a shared resource, but nobody's regulating it. That creates a classic tragedy to commons. And this goes to an economic principle where you have the shared resource, it gets eviscerated because nobody's actually regulating it. And so the classic example is everybody can spout pollution in the air unless you have a regulator to actually make for the public benefit, or you can end up with a bad result. But time is similar to that, where everybody's thinking about like, how do they need to get their day done and just grabbing from others. And so you need to have something that comes in and helps actually coordinate amongst everyone for the good of the whole team, for the whole organization. And at the core, that's our philosophy at Clockwise is like, we want to help that individual get the best schedule by looking out for them across the team, across the people they meet with, across the organization. And we also think that unless you do that, you're going to end up in a bad outcome. One thing that I would advise everybody to do, if you just take away one tip, it's not easy, it might feel like a luxury, but just spend a little bit of time at the start of your week asking what are the most critical things for me to accomplish this week. And that list should only be 3 items, maybe 5, and then look at whether you have the time to do it. And when I say look at the time, whether if you have to do it, let's say like I need to knock out this presentation and I need to spend some time talking to customers. Well, then look at your calendar and see when is that going to happen? Just in broad buckets. You don't need to like schedule out the exact time. Just do you have the heads down time to accomplish that? And if you don't, move things around to make sure you do and block it off. Some people love time blocking, like they love to take that specific item of like, I'm going to do this presentation Wednesday afternoon. If you want to do that and that works for you, awesome. I say go for it. But for me, it's hard to plan out exactly when I'm going to do something. So I take those broad priorities and I just make blocks of focus time that say, hey, if I have these blocks and I have my task list, I'll at least have enough time in the week to get my most important priorities done. The idea of helping people get a better schedule, getting a better, more productive work environment. It really spoke to me as a manager. It spoke to me as an engineer, but also spoke to me just as a human who's been focused on productivity software my whole life. And it's one of those rare ideas, I think these are very rare, where the value for the end user and the value for the buyer align directly in a way that creates a high degree of focus and clarity for what sort of product you have to deliver. And for us, if we deliver a great product that really gives you a better schedule, that's going to help that team work better. That's going to help that company work better together. It's going to help them ship faster. It's going to help them deliver more for their customers. The value for that end user, the team, and the company are all aligned. And so we can focus on just delivering something that really helps that user. And in the process, I think there are companies out there that are charitable organizations that are really driving big humanity level changes. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Clockwise is a capitalistic endeavor. However, and this is really important to me, because of that value alignment between the individual team and company, we can still drive huge human level impact. I mean, if you get a good day where you get to jam and do what you want to do, you go home happier, you go back to your life happier. And that makes me that gives me energy on a daily basis. That gives me energy 7 years after founding. We're in this early development phase where, again, we had the clarity of where we want to take this thing, but we just weren't sure how the initial product would manifest. And so one of the first things we did is reach out to friends and family to figure out, some places that we could test this out. And early on, we got connected with a high-up engineer at Second. I remember going in and we had gotten a meeting with, it was either a director or a VP level in the engineering organization, and they allowed us to connect Clockwise in a very secure, closed way to their corporate calendar. And what we did is we used that in order to power a demonstration of what the optimization could yield. That was the initial question: is if Clockwise is in our calendar system and we allow it to move our meetings, is there actually any benefit there? Because that was an unknown. People weren't convinced. They hadn't seen it before. And so we connected to this calendar system, hundreds of people, and we ran virtualized. We didn't do this in Google Calendar, but we took all the real data and we ran a optimization of their whole calendar system in a way that we could show it to that leader. And, we ran it and you could see all the meetings moving around. You could see what would impact people's schedule. You go and inspect all of it. And the result came back and we were giving them back thousands of hours over the course of a couple months. But we were actually driving so much productivity in that organization. His eyes just lit up and said, yeah, if you can deliver that, I will buy it. We raised our seed round from Excel Partners in 2017. And we were focused at that point of trying to unlock this initial version of the product that would deliver value and allow us to expand. And when we raised our A round from Greylock Partners, we weren't quite there yet. We had some initial traction. The results looked incredibly promising in terms of what we could drive, but it just wasn't there. So we hadn't released it publicly yet. We're still in very private beta. And then in the summer of 2019, for the very first time, we opened that up to all Google Calendar users. At first, we kind of, we had a waitlist experience where you had to get through, but more or less, we unbounded allowed people to access it. And that's where you saw that effort that we'd put in terms of building that viral growth inside the company start to spin up. We released our product out. We saw those initial 1,200 or so users. We got that initial traction. It felt great. And they were like, is that it? Is that going to work? But then week after week, it just started to spin up and up and up and up. And the important thing is that the growth was compounding. With those initial 1,200 users, some of them seeded an experience in our organization where it started to spread, and others talked about it on social media where we got more, and it just started to spin. And it was so incredibly exciting. It's hard to express in words. So Clockwise is a product that focuses on driving value for the individual. And we had kind of a chicken and egg problem in the early days, which is that the product gets way better when you use it with others. It's fundamentally about intersecting with other teammates and other calendars and being able to optimize the whole. If you just have one person, we can deliver some value, but it's not as remarkable as if you use it with your team. And so we had to figure out a way to pull that individual in and get them spun up such that it starts to spread to their team. And so that was the initial barrier. How do we get the product to start to spread inside of organizations? And it required us to do a few different things. So we had to build that single player value. That wasn't, frankly, a lot of these were bells and whistles around the real meat and potatoes, which is that kind of team-based value of being able to optimize the schedule. But we saw that user comes in, of course they want to see what can you do for me today. And so we built out things like personal calendar sync, automatically color coding in meetings, be able to put travel time on, be able to block off lunch. And these features allow people to get that instant hit of value while we still drove them towards, hey, opt into the meetings that you want Clockwise to automate. And we tinkered with this for some time, but ultimately found a calibration of that allowed that user to come in, utilize the feature, managers and gave us time to spread inside that organization. And that was one of the biggest early unlocks of the company. Going to that early unlock of kind of that viral growth inside the organization, that's always been a key driver of our growth. And so we tend to land inside of an organization. Sometimes we land in 5 people companies. We land in a company that might be 500, 1,000, 10,000. And Clockwise starts to grow inside that company. And it allowed us to mature into places where like Uber, Netflix, Pinterest, Instacart, where we have these large deploys that are powering a huge component of their organization. And that continues to be a huge driver for us today. So our mission is to help the world make time for what matters. It's been our mission since day one. We see that often the obstacle for people to get what they want done in the day or in the week is their work calendar. It's those meetings that get in their way. And our vision is to help give everyone a schedule they love. We want you to feel that. We want you to feel that in your schedule, hopefully a daily basis, at least a weekly basis. Clockwise helps organizations and teams get more productivity in the week, more time to ship, more time to deliver, more time with customers, more time with clients. That is ultimately what we're driving. But we always try to stay anchored to that vision of if we give you a schedule that you love, all the rest falls into place.